Christine?
Yes, good afternoon, all. Lord, make me an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Christine. We just go over some brief housekeeping rules. We would just ask everyone to make sure your mics are on mute and your cameras are off while the facilitator is taking us through this afternoon session. We do have a dedicated questions segment, but if you must ask a question, if the facilitator allows, simply raise your hand when you want to pose your question and he will call on you to answer. You can also feel free to type in the chat and let's interact there, right? And we want to enjoy this afternoon and we want to do so respectfully for the benefits of all on the call. So without further delay, I will introduce our Chair of the Nominations Committee and member of the Board of Directors, Ms. Christiana Wallace, who will introduce this afternoon's facilitator. Ms. Wallace?
Thank you, Carissa. Good afternoon, all. My name is Christiana Wallace. I am the chair of the Nomination Committee. This series is a three-part series. It shall be hosted the second, which is today, the third, and the fourth. This series we put together as the Nomination Committee. You know, sometimes persons may put themselves up for nomination and they may not be fully aware of the different roles and function of the committees. So hence the reason for putting this together. And it's in keeping with our strat plans, regarding our goals and objectives. And this is part of our goal from the nomination committee. In terms of our goal is to ensure best practice and good governance of the organization and provide the board with sufficient information to make informed decisions in the ever-changing environment. Don't want to be long, so just a brief opening remarks, and I now want to introduce you to our facilitator, Mr. Nigel Matthew. Mr. Nigel Matthew, the lead consultant with the firm NEM Leadership Consultants. NEM Leadership Consultant is a hybrid management and leadership consultancy practice with the aim of assisting businesses to achieve growth and sustainability. Mr. Matthews has over 30 years management and executive experience in the financial industry. Mr. Nigel Matthew is a chartered accountant, is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants of the United Kingdom and a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Trinidad and Tobago. Nigel is the holder of a postgraduate master's degree in finance from Henley Management College, University of Reading in the United Kingdom. Nigel is a certified professional in anti-money laundering from the Florida International Bankers Association, FIBA, Florida International University. Mr. Matthews' areas of expertise include leadership and management development, strategic planning, business transformation, change management, system audits, mortgage portfolio management, coaching, and anti-money laundering compliance. I welcome you all to Mr. Nigel Matthew, Leadership Consultant. Thank you. Mr. Nigel Matthew.
Hi, good evening all, and thank you for that warm introduction, Ms. Wallace. And a pleasant good evening to the Board of Directors and the participants on the line here this evening. All right, so thank you again for inviting me to be part of this three-part series and to kick off things today. I am going to try to share my presentation. All right, so I think I should be able to do so. Right, I think I should be able to do so now. So let me see how best I can navigate. Okay, give me 1 second. Right, folks, I trust that you all are seeing the screen. Hello?
Yes,
you
we
yes.
can see it's up.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Good. So again, thank you for having me on this this discourse with respect to the functions and requirements of the statutory committees, and of course we talk about the Board of Directors this evening. All right, so I know we started a bit late, so I just want to get started. All right, so I think the moderator asked that, you know, if you have a question, you can raise your hand, or you can wait at the end of the session whereby we can have that sort of, you know, discourse of clarifying some matters as the case would be. All right, so we look at the Board of Directors, okay, with respect to the statutory committee. But what I do want to let you know that, you know, Tranquility Credit Union is ever evolving. So to me, if there's an evolution taking place, if there's a transformation taking place, if there's a change taking place, we as leaders, or you as leaders in terms of the Board of Directors or the prospects of you becoming a board at Tranquility Credit Union should also evolve, because whatever our thinking was, let's say 20 years ago, 5 years ago, and in this high-tech digital world that we find ourselves in, I guess there should be some sort of evolution within us in terms of how do we manage, how do we lead as a board member, as the case would be. So we need to look at that. But I know the frightened questions that you may have as a board member or a prospective board member is really, you know, what is my role? You know, can I really do this job, you know, that I call the Board of Directors in terms of being a leader? What am I supposed to do? Can I function as a board member? Other questions you may want to ask yourself, or maybe, you know, ask other people, am I capable of being a board member? What do I need to learn? Because it might be something new. So if I'm going into something new, I guess there's a learning curve, right? And who do I talk to? Where do I go for help? So these are the burning questions someone may want to ask in terms of being trusted in this leadership role as the Board of Directors. And I'm quite certain that you're aware that the Board of Directors is really responsible for the discharge of the credit union affairs between one AGM to the next. All right, you have been trusted 12 members, you know, to make all those decisions and then come back to the AGM and account-based stewardship. So you're on your own to a certain extent, of course, within a particular framework, so that you need to know, you know, what is my role? And that is what we want to sort of touch on today in terms of where do I go, or how can I function effectively on behalf of Tranquility Credit Union? So it is really what we call a governance matter. Okay, and we want to look at some of the principal duties in terms of governance, because when we talk about board, we really talk about these people up in some room or some office, you know, making some really heavy decisions. And governance speaks to the role and how we make decisions on behalf of our subjects, meaning the members in your particular case. So, and we have three principal duties: fiduciary duty, duty of care, and statutory duty. But before we look at that, what we really want to examine, and this is where the court, if there's a dispute, would go back to what is your role, what is your function? And they would really go back to what we call Section 99 of the Companies Act. And it's quite stated here that what you're supposed to do in terms of the discharge of your mandate is that every director and officer of the company shall in exercising his powers and discharging his duties, act honestly and in good faith with a view to the best interests of the company. Now, those are really profound and strong words in terms of that statement, but lo and behold, in the reality, so we have to face reality too, this may not happen, but it should happen. So given everything that we're supposed to do in terms of our role, our functions, our mandate, we need to act honestly and, of course, in good faith to the interests of the company, in this case, the interests of Tranquility Credit Union. So in other words, I know we have collective responsibility, but by and large, you are an independent person. You're supposed to have independent thoughts, right? In terms of you acting in good faith, and hopefully, that should spread and everybody should do the same thing. In terms of the other area, B, exercise the care, diligence, and skill that a reasonable, prudent person would exercise in comparable circumstances, okay? So in other words, what this is telling us is that as a leader, as the main decision maker outside of the annual general meeting, the supreme being, in terms of that, the supreme authority, which is the annual general meeting, you are second in line, and you are expected to exercise a duty of care, diligence, and skill, but we may not have all the skills. So hence the reason you might ask the question, do I have to learn anything? What do I have to do, right? So this is really the foundation of, to me, of someone discharging the responsibility as a board of director, act in good faith, be honest, and of course, look at the exercise the duty of care and be diligent in what you do. In addition to that, Section 60 of the Companies Act also tells us we must exercise the powers of the company directly or indirectly through the employees and agents. So although you are responsible, and you see, this is telling us that here there should be a separation. The separation in terms of the board of directors responsible for policy making, and then those policies are executed and implemented by management, agents, consultants, as the case would be. So it's kind of hard or skewed should you want to make the policy and then you try to execute, as a board member, all right? So there should really be a sort of a divorce, unless there's a sort of a crisis and you have to get down in terms of what we call the trenches. You got to put on your boots and go down to sort of, out some fires and get the organization back up and running. But your role is really one of policy. Okay, so that is what, we're supposed to do. So we talk about the three principal duties: fiduciary, duty of care, and statutory. So we have a lot of information there, but of course we wouldn't go through that. But what we want to look at is the fiduciary responsibility is that you as a director, individual, right-thinking person, independent in thoughts, supposed to seek the best interests of the organization. And that organization is called Tranquility Credit Union, nothing else. Nothing more, nothing less. Seek the best interests of the organization. In other words, you're not in any group, you're not in any cahoots, you're not in any cabal, as the saying goes, but you have to look after the affairs of the organization and make decisions, as we saw before, in terms of being honest and in the best interest of the organization. Right? That's the fiduciary duty that you're supposed to exercise as a board member. A duty of care as well is a duty to exercise the care, diligence, and skill that a reasonable, prudent person would exercise. And of course, this came from Section 60 of the Companies Act. So reference is always made to that in terms of how do we discharge our responsibilities. Duty of care, to me, is trying to get as much information as possible so that whatever decision is before me, whatever matter is before me, I can get the information. If I don't have the information, I can seek the information elsewhere. I can ask the chair or other colleagues to get information so that I can exercise that duty of care. And of course, Tranquility Credit Union is a law-abiding corporate citizen. So at the end of the day, since you are responsible for the future of this organization, you want to know that this organization is compliant with the laws of the land. Okay, because in law, Tranquility Credit Union is a being, is a person, right? So you want that person that you represent to really subscribe to the Cooperative Societies Act, which is the Credit Union Act, whatever labor laws, environmental laws, anti-money laundering laws, and other laws as the case may be. So those are what you're supposed to do as a board member: fiduciary role, duty of care role, and of course the statutory duty. Okay, so remember those three things, as we move forward. However, when we look at the Cooperative Societies Act in terms of a board, they talk about the board of management or other directing body. So you directing, you controlling, you making policy decisions to whom the management of the affairs of the society is entrusted. And as I said before, you do that through the engagement with our CEO, our general manager, staff, agents, consultants. So I want to sort of separate the role because somehow, you know, coming from the credit union movement too, there's a myth that here what, I'm a director, so I'm in control, I should push around people, go into the operations and that type of stuff. I think we need to get away from that to a certain extent because credit unions have grown quite large. Now we have credit unions, not only $1 million or $2 million, but hundreds of millions of dollars. Now we have billions of dollars in terms of the credit union movement for a particular unit. So you really don't want to be, you know, be part of the operations and still want to make decisions, okay? Because there must be a fallback should something not too right with respect to the operations, all right? Your bylaws, meaning Tranquility Credit Union, speaks to the board shall exercise all the powers of the society except those reserved to the general meeting of the members, and in particular shall have the following powers, and we'll go into that in a while. So there's a separation between what you have entrusted to do between AGMs, annual general meetings, and what the general membership should do, because that is supreme authority within the credit union. All right, so we have it here. You know, we can go on and talk about, you know, some other principles, but, you know, we'll just look at your role as directors is to influence policy making and provide direction. And that is what, you know, a board member should seek to do. Provide direction for the sustainability of the organization, for the upliftment, for the longevity, and of course, expansion. All right, and that is what you must be symbolic. You must be able to set the tone together with your other colleagues to really direct management, assist management, support management in their work so that they can, you know, really execute and implement policies, okay? We have also, you know, for you being a board member, of course, you must be committed to the organization, okay? So having said all of this, you know, as I said, if you go back to section 99, you know, once you act honestly and in good faith, everything else, you know, doesn't really matter, you know, but we know in reality that may not be so, so we have to kind of drill down a bit, okay? You've got to show concern for your members because those are the people that you are serving. Tranquility Credit Union is in existence to serve its members, not to serve other directors or other committees, and more so not to serve yourself, but the members of the credit union, okay? You must be able to share your skill, opportunity to network, and of course, do not join the board seeking personal financial benefit, all right? I know within the structure, yes, there might be maybe a stipend, maybe, you know, some fee for being on committees. That's good, because I must admit there are so many responsibilities and even liabilities, I should say, on a board member. So there should be some kind of benefit, but not a salary. Okay, salary is reserved for the management and the staff of the credit union. So you can't be fish and fowl at the same time. Okay, so you need to have that separation. Ask not what Tranquility could do for you, but what you could do for Tranquility Credit Union as a body corporate. All right, so that is what you should come to the board with, to serve the organization and to serve it well and in good faith. Okay, so let's kind of drill along a bit. Okay, in terms of what your role should be, in terms of setting direction, you provide resources because you have to make decisions, right? To spend money, you have to make that decision in the form of a budget, right? And management will then go and execute that and commit the organization resources. And of course, having done that, you don't want to leave that responsibility alone. You need to provide oversight because whatever the policy is, whatever you mandate or project that you have approved, you want to know that that is being executed well. And of course, the credit union is getting value for money in the oversight performance, okay? So set direction is really developing and maintaining focus on the mission, delegate authority for the credit union management, articulate and promote the organizational values. Those are the policy making and the hierarchy that as a board member, you should be concerned about. And you really want to know that here what, this is my role. And I'm going to do my role well, and other people within the structure will do theirs. All right, but you got to set the tone because you call yourself a director or a board of management. So I guess directors must lead, and that is your role. And one of that leading attributes is really to set the direction of Tranquility to go forward, because Tranquility should be a going concern. And It can only be a going concern if it exists next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 years, next 50 years. All right, but you have to set the direction to that. Having done that, of course, management cannot function without resources, without policies, without systems, without people. So you have to be able to provide the resources by understanding the organization needs, meaning Tranquility Credit Union, its human and other, type of capital needs, and provide that. Support management. So at the end of the day now, you can see the transformation taking place within the organization. And of course, you're not operating alone. You're in a highly competitive financial environment. Long time credit unions, function in a little space. That's it. But now other credit unions are intruded in your space. In other words, there's competition within the credit union movement because people have opened up. So anyone can join basically any credit union. You have the banks, you have the insurance companies, you have the other non-regulated organizations who are also competing. So if you want to survive, if you want to perform, you've got to provide the resources and hold management accountable at the end of the day. All right, so we have that in terms of setting the tone, provide resources, and of course, oversight. Oversight in the sense that you have policies, you have procedures, and you want to know that the organization is operating within a particular framework. So we also have governance at all levels, not only at the board, but governance at the management level, governance at the supervisory level, governance at the operational level, because each person is responsible for their area of responsibility in whatever department or system, they find themselves in. So you got to monitor progress and of course, evaluate outcomes. If the outcome's not working, okay, you go back to the drawing board. Maybe you need a new vision. Maybe you need new objectives. Maybe you need a new strategy. Maybe new activities, as the case may be, in order to get the desired result that you want. And that is really the oversight role. So don't just leave your responsibility and whatever happens. You got to make sure it happens through that oversight function. All right. So I assume there's no questions so far, right? All right. So one might say, well, after all this sort of talk in terms of fiduciary role, duty of care, statutory duty, I'm talking about, providing direction, providing resources, oversight. But those things are contained within the bylaws of the credit union. And of course, the bylaws now would be something is really your constitution, how you operate, how you govern in terms of the various structures within the credit union. And your mandate as powers and duties of the board is contained in bylaw 23D 1 to 22, Roman 22. Okay, so we're not going to look at all, but of course we have them here. And the directors, I'm quite certain, very familiar with these, the existing directors and the potential directors. If you're interested in being on the board of Tranquility Credit Union, a well-run and managed credit union, you got to subscribe to the bylaws, because the bylaws, as I said, when we look back before, you need to sort of have a statutory role. This is statute. Yeah, so you cannot breach the bylaws. If you breach the bylaws, there can be consequences, okay? So the same way you have all these different powers, like for instance, to make decisions on application of membership, number one. If you look at what number Roman 3, to see that the accounts are accurately kept, to prepare, of course, to be prepared, not later than 1 month. Of course, you may not be actually doing it, but of course, you have the mechanism to do so. You have a structure to do it. You have an accountant, you have management, and they would provide that for you. If you look at some other powers that you have once you join the board of credit union, is to, like number Roman 6, to appoint board members to represent the society and vote on its behalf at any meeting of other society of which it is a member. So in the event that you are a member, meaning Tranquility is a member of another credit union, of course, you have to represent, people have to represent. So you might be the selected one to really, as a delegate, to go and represent Tranquility Credit Union, okay? If you look at number 10, to enter into contracts on behalf of the society, this is a big one, because this means going into a contract, whether it's an employment contract, whether it's a contract to buy land, property, motor vehicles, procurement, as the case may be, this is a heavy one, okay? So you need to know, in terms of exercising the duty of care, whatever contract that you are going into, you understand why it is being done, you understand maybe the risk factors, you understand whatever mitigants there might be, should there be risk. So all these things you should look at in terms of acting in good faith as an independent person. So it's not necessarily they're following the crowd. You know, if some board members say, they move it so, you move so. You must move so once you are convinced that that is the best interest of the credit union in terms of, you know, forward movement. All right, so there are so many, and of course, you will have access to the bylaws, so you can also, you know, look at these all the time. Look at number 14, Roman 14, to formulate rules and policies for the society. That's your mandate, okay? Because the only authority to approve policies, well, you can make too, but you can influence the making, but mostly to approve policies lies with the board of directors. So you need to make sure that the policy is consistent with the ideals and the value system of Tranquility Credit Union. It is consistent with the bylaws. It is consistent with the Cooperative Societies Act, and it doesn't alter various other laws that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, right? So you've got to be consistent. You got to know these things because you are the policy maker. In other words, you don't want to make bad law. Bad law, bad policy will not carry you anywhere, right? You'll have a lot of problems with that. So that is what, you know, you have there. All right, and, you know, we can go on and on, but of course, these are the powers, as you can see, that you have to exercise. You know, while you attend board meetings, or if you are on a board subcommittee, these are the things that you got to remember, that you have to do these things on behalf of the credit union. All right, so quite a lot. So the task of a board member is quite onerous. As you can see, 22 major duties as enshrined within your bylaws, as approved by the membership, as approved by the cooperative division, okay, which is the line agency that you have to report to from a governmental standpoint. So as I said, this is statute, this is law. So you can't really, you know, play with that, so to speak. All right, so, you know, we have that. Other areas you may want to look at, you know, these are just some other things, you know, I don't know, approve policies, we know that, ensure competency of senior management because you need to hold them accountable. So these are others that I just showing here, right? Ensure effective risk management systems are in place in the organization because basically running Tranquility or managing credit union, Tranquility is really managing risks. You have risks all around. You have operational risks, you have IT risks, you have cyber risks, you have governance risks, you have people's risks. You know, you have anti-money laundering risks, you have membership risks, you know, you have environmental risks, so that you have to come up with what we call risk responses to ensure that the credit union does not get into trouble by not, you know, following good governance and good decision making. All right, so as I said, we just kind of, you know, throw that in a bit, yeah. Now, so having said that, I want to sort of bring it home into what we call the 3 layers of governance. Okay, and the 3 layers of governance speak to an external governance in terms of the mandate, but it's external to the organization, meaning Tranquility Credit Union, internal governance within the operations and systems within the credit union, and an individual governance, meaning you, the individual director, what you have to do. I know we have expounded on some of those things, but we're just going to amplify a bit, all right, as we look at these 3 layers of governance: external, internal, and of course, individual. And then I'm going to, you know, sort of introduce you to a new concept of leadership. So when we look at the external one, we're really looking at one that is transparent, one that is satisfying your compliance and your prudential requirements, and of course, public accountability. Transparency now speaks to that the credit union has nothing to hide. The credit union is operating above board, and you are part of that by being the policy maker outside of the annual general meeting, right? So you want the credit union to be transparent in terms of its books, in terms of its accounts, in terms of how it does business, okay? And of course, open communication with its members, the other statutory committees, the Commissioner for Cooperative Development, other government agencies as the case be, and of course, we have a duty to the environment. All right, so we cannot forget that. Compliance and prudential, yes. As I said before, your role, one of your principal duties as a director is to ensure that the credit union comply with all statutory requirements, right? So externally, how people see the organization, they must see the organization as a compliant one, not a renegade, not a runaway type of horse, you know, but one that is compliant with all the laws of the land. Public accountability too, what we talk about, the credit union rely on public confidence to remain operational. And you need that, because if you have no public confidence, I don't think you will attract members, okay? And even if you have members and you have no confidence, I think members will leave. I was in another type of discourse today, and I mentioned the same thing, you know, once confidence is eroded, the exit clause of a member or a customer is quite easy. They just bust it, as we say, right? So you want to know that some level of accountability, some level of confidence, that reputation must be protected at all costs, and you as a director or collectively as a board must be able to do that. Okay, so that is really the external part of the governance that you have to ensure that is happening at the credit union. So let's now look at the internal part of it. Okay, the internal part of it, in terms of your policy making, you must ensure that there's a structure. Okay, and the structure now must be a balanced one, meaning people with different types of skills, interests, whether it's operations, marketing, accounting, compliance, risk management, you know, computers, you know, all different types of skills that should be within the structure of the organization. Even within the board, you must bring something to the board, the board of directors, to complement the thinking and the discussions and the analysis and of course the decision making, right? So you got to bring that too in terms of being part of that board structure and the overall structure of the organization. Continuity, as I said before, tranquility is a going concern, right? And it can only be a going concern in terms of longevity, sustainability, if it is very competitive. So when we talk about you making decisions, you got to make decisions on interest rates too. You got to make decisions on products. But I guess those products must be relevant. That's what people want. If people don't want your products, you know, you're kind of, you know, according to the young people, not really making sense, right? Or it's a timing. So you got to be competitive by scanning the market, bringing those ideas to the board, and you have a mature decision, and you make whatever decisions that, you know, you need to do. Balance too, in terms of, we talk about skill set, the culture, the stakeholders, there must be a balanced view of the organization. And again, here we go. We had it in terms of the external governance, and we have it in terms of the internal governance. Accountability, roles and responsibility must be clearly defined. So as I started off, you, well, ought not to be a policymaker and then be part of the operations, okay? There must be defined roles. Your role is to policy making, management role is to execute the policies that you have made, and then people down the line in terms of the operations to really carry that out in a more detailed way. So those are what we call internal governance of the organization. And then we have the individual governance now, which is you, in terms of a level of integrity. Well, I guess that goes without saying. We should, you know, act in good faith, as we saw before, Section 99 of the Companies Act. And of course, competence, meaning your skill set. So again, I tell people, okay, you may come on the board, okay, you may not be an accountant, you may not understand marketing, you may not understand risk, but there's an opportunity to learn and develop the skills. And I'm quite certain that the credit union would expose you, in terms of directors and potential directors as well, to training and development. But training and development is not a joyride. It is really to develop your skills so that you can contribute to the effective decision-making of the organization, right? So in other words, you move from, I don't know, being awareness, develop some sort of skill, that skill will turn into a capability, and hopefully you'll get good at it and you become competent in whatever skill that you have, you know, that kind of stuff. And of course, you can't be a director and not be committed. Committed in terms of the voluntary role that you're going into is really a sacrifice. As you said before, it's not what tranquility must do for you, but what you must do for tranquility, right? In terms of that level of commitment, because you are there to serve the members, as the case would be. All right, so we hope that, you know, you take these things at heart, right? So the three layers of governance, the external, the internal, and individual, I think, you know, this is something that, you know, you should really look at. All right, where am I now? And, you know, individual board members, you know, this is for you. You had 10 meetings, be prepared, be accessible, follow through on your commitments. You make commitments. Mr. President, I'm going to review this. I'm going to do this on behalf of the organization, and you do it, okay? You don't want to make a commitment, you come back the next meeting and you're into it, you're unsure, you know, that kind of stuff. You network with your colleagues, right? You listen to your members, you respect your colleagues, you mentor new directors, because at one time, you might be what we call a more, how to put it, senior director in terms of longevity on the board or on the credit union. So, the other people would look up at you for direction. You stay informed, you stay focused so you can be relevant. You get involved in the board discussions, as I said, to act in the best interest. And of course, you take advantage of the educational opportunities, because when we look at the area of competence, when we look at your individual governance, there's something called competence. And competence is really you developing your skills to contribute to the success of the organization. And of course, you respect the democratic process, a decision-making of 1209. Everybody cannot agree, but at the same time, once a decision is made, you should be a team player and really, try to, support the decisions of the organization and try to move the organization forward, right? So these are some individual board member responsibilities that we decide to sort of throw in there. This one, this is new to certain people. And this is really the thinking part, right? Because we talk about being sustainable, being relevant, and these are the Reperform pillars. So Reperform pillars is really an applied leadership discourse that here what? You performed well last year, you performed well last 5 years, last 10 years. What about next year? What about next 5 years, So you got to reperform, and reperform embodies a number of different pillars that I would sort of look at quickly, just sort of whetting appetite with this new concept in terms of rethink. A new future for yourself, rethinking a new future for yourself and the organization, meaning tranquility, and try to actualize the vision through management action plans. So you also have to rethink the direction of the organization. Repurpose your being to have meaning, to be good at what you want to be, all right? Which is really not what you want to be, but what tranquility wants to be. Refocus the energies in value-added ways, okay? Because of the high competitive environment we need to look at, you always have to be refocusing your energies to see if you're going in the right direction, to see if you're meeting members' needs, to see if you can attract new people, as the case may be. Rebuild your thought processes in a constructive way towards business development. Okay, so rebuilding is really a mental one that will transform into real tangible ways because of your decision making. Rebrand in terms of how people see you. Rebrand yourself and organization towards new standards and expectations and delivery. All right, we always have to be somewhat on this rebranding so that there could be an identity of the organization and you can attract more people, because the credit union has to add value, and you can only add value if you sell your money well. Sell your money well in terms of good loans and of course investments, and the interest you make from that should be more than your cost, and you kind of add value in the process. Remarket your scope where value is created. And I know credit unions have been remarketing a lot because they have opened up their frontiers, their boundaries, that so to speak, and really go into new markets for new members, and even going to new products and services. That is also remarketing as well. So you got to just keep on doing it, okay? In terms of direct, what you need to do is to redirect your energies purposefully and constructively, okay? Too often, in terms of on the ground or in practice, people direction are really more malicious in some cases and more destructive. What we are saying, redirect your energies purposefully and constructively. Realign towards business balance within the changing environment. The organization is ever changing, the environment ever changing, your members are ever changing. So there's always a realignment taking place. And if there's a realignment and you're changing, you want to know how that is being done, so you got to reassess. Okay, so reassess performance actions in a measurable way. So we can go on and on with this kind of concept, but I believe that you get the gist of what we're talking about. You always have to do things better than what happened last year or what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday is history. You can't change that. But you can influence tomorrow. You can influence the next, 5 years, as the case to be. So, we got to look at that. Yeah. I pull this out in terms of closing my presentation to a certain extent. I pull this out because I think this is really relevant. And of course, this happened in a few days ago. whereby we talk about Vice President Kamala Harris fights or rally for Biden, okay, the leader. So being part of a board of directors, yes, you have independent, you should have independence in thought, but you also have that team spirit within you. So your leader, in terms of this case, had a bad night in terms of the interview. So you're not going to throw him under the bus or throw her under the bus, but you're going to rally around your fellow board members. You're going to rally around your management. You're going to rally around your team members, because we may not be able to perform well all the time. You know, because there's a saying, form is temporary, but class is permanent. Okay? So you may be out of form, you know, you may have a bad day, you know, bad performance. You don't really come down on people. You got to support people. So this is really the team spirit I'm trying to sort of articulate in terms of you being a board member and, you know, kind of rallying or being a mentor, being a shoulder to lean on, you know, on behalf of the other team members. And I just wanted to show that we are trying to be relevant as much as possible. You know, you're talking about managing an organization such as Tranquility. What you're really talking about is how well you develop craft strategies and how well you execute. And to me, strategy has to do with the context. It has to be contextualized in terms of what is happening there. And this is just an example. We know that West Indies lose to South Africa, and there's a view that, yes, you had a plan moving along. You may have a strategic plan, that's fine. But the strategic plan may have been crafted 3 years ago, 5 years ago, under a particular environment. The environment has changed. So what we are saying as leaders, as policymakers, as directors, if the environment changed, more than likely the strategy got to change. And there's a view that West Indies did not change the strategy, notwithstanding different conditions. The environment changed, and they stuck to the old strategy, or the same strategy, and of course, the rest is history. They lose the game. So as a board member too, you also have to look at the environment to see whatever you're doing is quite relevant now. And if so, you know, foster change, try to influence change, because leadership is about influence. Nothing more, nothing else, nothing less, okay? So you have to remember that in terms of, you know, trying to be part of credit union, well-managed organization, but of course, trying to be relevant. So if the conditions change, you should influence change. And when we say influence change, is not to look at the board, not to look at management, not to look at the members to change, but of course, look at yourself to change. So I got this in my feed today, to be exact, this morning. I said, wow, this is really compelling, you know? Let me show this. I have a leadership talk to give, so let me show it. So this is talking about the transformation of Tranquility. Well, we are talking about the transformation of Tranquility as a board member, but the statement has nothing to do with that, but it is relevant in my view. If a man wants to reform the world, or if you want to reform Tranquility, we talk about the reform concept, which is new. Either by reason of the authority of his position, meaning as a board, or the duty of your office, you might be the president, the vice president, the secretary, as the case may be, he must begin with himself, okay? And Gandhi spoke to that, you know, if you want to change the world, you got to look within, okay? You got to change yourself first, right? And then change yourself first in terms of adapting to the environment and to the people and try to influence. In other words, change begins with you. All right, so I said I saw it in my WhatsApp today. I said, wow, let me try to bring home this point. Okay, so again, I want to sort of end my presentation now. I'm not too sure if there are any questions or comments or discussions. Again, we are open. It's a rapport we want to do. So I hand you over back to the moderator.
Thanks,
So,
Mr.
moderator?
Matthew.
Yes.
Okay, let's just ask anyone if they have any questions for Mr. Matthew at this time. You can feel free to ask him.
Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon.
Mr. Jarvis, I
Are
believe.
you hearing me? Yes, Mr. Matthew. I really got piqued when you brought up the repurpose aspect of management and directing. Tell me, what is your view in respect to the interpretation of change and repurpose?
Of change and repurpose?
Where remanagement. because you brought up the idea of the West Indies team, and you said they needed to change. They needed to more or less, as you may be implying, that they needed to upgrade because of the time. But you also introduced this whole repurpose aspect of management. Could give me some more in it, or the interpretation and the different.
And when I talk about repurpose, I talk about repurpose your being to have meaning, to be good at what you want to be. Because the purpose, the reason that of your existence, which is really enshrined to a certain extent in terms of your vision, right? But your vision is really what we call a future state, you know, something that is not yet realized, but you hope to realize it. But then that can only be realized based upon your mission and your strategies adopted, consistent with the environment. And the analogy I use with respect to West Indies is that, yes, you had a very good strategy because you were winning, okay, under a particular environment. But then the environment changed and you didn't change your strategy, okay? So you're really supposed to repurpose your whole concept of what you want to do, right? So that it can have meaning. Because at the end of the day, you want to win. You want to be successful. In the context of tranquility, you want to grow the organization. You want to satisfy members. You want to give them products and services that they need. You want to look at their development. You want to look at the returns and all these things, right? And you can only do that if you understand the environment and you be willing to be part of that. Because I also give the analogy too, is that you can be very good at what you're doing, but everybody doing it better than you. So you still kind of last. In other words, if you're running 100 meters at 10 seconds and you feel you're the greatest, that's pretty fast. As we know, Here's Crawford won I think the Olympics in 70, I can't remember, 76, 77, somewhere there. I think about 10 seconds. If you run 10 seconds now in 100 meters, you know you're last, right? So you're doing things well, but other people doing it better than you, okay? So we also have to have a reflection in terms of how we do things and what we do in it. And more importantly, why are we doing it? Not because you did it a particular way last year and last 2 years, you got to do it the same way. No, things have changed. And you know, you have to have that level of agility within your operations and of course, a mental, because I always tell people, mental change comes before physical change, okay? It must resonate in your mind, and then you try to, you know, unleash that, and you see the physical change, new buildings, more members, more profitability, more surplus, that kind of stuff. So I hope I answered the question, Jarvis, but again, you always have to
I gather in your discourse, the environment change and the individual, and I'm still using the West Indies analogy in respect of management and leadership. The environment change, so you really have to repurpose to be able to adapt to that change.
Definitely, because if you don't, in other words, as you heard the statement, you know, you become a dinosaur. And in the context of an individual board member, that is what board members supposed to bring to the table. You know, and that's when we talk about a balanced board. You don't, to me, you don't want a board with one thinking, one style, everybody accountants, everybody marketing. No, there should be morphing of different aptitudes, different interests, different skills in order to make a really informed decision. Because each decision will have an impact on other things. So for instance, if you want to introduce a new product, marketing has to get involved, accounts have to get involved, compliance have to get involved. So you need people with different skills, and a board member now should seek out avenues to develop, well, a lot of skills, but more so, you know, be good at a skill so that you can contribute to the discussion and more so the effective decision process.
Another question is, do we have, or is there any new aspect developed? Because I heard the conversation about the respect. So that same aspect of team, this removing your individualism and trying to believe in team. because we still have that issue in a lot of companies and that thing. What will you say in respect?
Well, yes, Minister, we have what we call
Individual.
individual responsibility, as we sort of explained, but there's also something called collective responsibility. And any organization, whether it's Tranquility or otherwise, cannot function effectively in a dysfunctional manner, dysfunctional manner is that one person is excelling at the expense of another person, or another system, or another department, as the case would be. So you must have that level of cohesion, that level of collaboration, and of course, that level of team spirit. So we give the example of the US president had a bad night. I think he and all acknowledge it, everybody acknowledge it, but it doesn't define him or his or her performance. The same thing could be for management. Management can make a mistake. Board can make a mistake. You don't necessarily have to throw people under the bus. I'm not saying you have to accept mediocrity, but at the same time, you got to, help people. I call it the ladder effect. If you're pushing somebody up the ladder, guess what's happening? You going up too, right? So it's not about crabs in a barrel, but helping each other to move on. And to me, as a leader, as a board member, your job is really to create and develop new leaders. Not only to develop yourself, but to develop other leaders. Because if you subscribe to the principle of sustainability and longevity, the other leaders have to take on the baton at some point in time. You will not be there forever. All right, so we also have to keep that in mind. We're performing a beautiful role now, but we know that role will come to an end, and other people have to take over. So if you want the organization to develop, you should ensure that the other people that you are developing, that you are mentoring, equipped to carry on the legacy. Because the legacy should not die when you decide to, I don't know, leave the board willingly, or maybe, God forbid, something else happen and you have to leave. You should know that there are systems in place, there are structures in place, and there are competent people who can take the mantle and run with it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a hand raised by Mr. Noel Maxwell. Mr. Noel, can you ask your question?
Yeah, good evening. Not so much of a question, is because I came in the meeting much too late. And this happened because it's only today I actually saw the answer, the chat, that I was registered to enter the meeting. As a matter of fact, it wasn't today, just a few minutes, hours ago. So this is why I came into the meeting so late, but I believe these meetings are paramount important, especially today, credit union meeting. It's something that I'd always asked for under the sense of educating members. And I'm disappointed that I don't know if it's because of the hurricane yesterday and all the interest in the hurricane, but I actually did review my emails this morning, and I did not see the link until just about an hour ago. But I feel it would be nice if we could get a rerun of this meeting. As a matter of fact, I only see about 15 participants when I came in. And I think maybe the other participants, the problem happened to me also. The problem happened to me most likely might happen to some of those missing participants. So I look forward to everyone. And then one of the things I look at in the chat is so many questions asked, and maybe the host the presenter had missed it. It's concerning the bylaws of the credit union. And these are so easily accessible to members, especially when nearer to meeting, because I remember they used to be on the site, on police site, and every meeting we have, we got bylaws. So those members who are asking questions about the bylaws, I think those bylaws are very easily accessible from other members, because our bylaws are always exposed because we had so many changes. And yet, as I say, just as with these meetings, the members are not participating, so they are not educated, considering credit unions, that's how important it is. And especially now, not the credit union alone in Trinidad and Tobago, because I as
So I think it was you reminded us. So I think your presentation touched on a lot of those things, and yes, food for thought and to remind us as we rethink and refresh going forward. A good presentation. Thank you for that, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Keep on top of our game. We have to keep on top of our
Yes.
game. Have the ambition, may not have the skills, but it's about having the ambition and the drive and the passion to do so. You know, and thanks for that this evening.
You got to understand the rules of the game and be able to play it well so that you can be successful.
Very well said. Very well said, Miss Allen Benjamin. I just want to add a little takeaway. I love that you included Mr. Matthew asked not what tranquility could do for you, but what you could do for tranquility. Because at the end of the day, it's about service to the membership, service to the institution, service to our fellow men, our community. So I want to add that I appreciated that sentiment. And for those of you who would be interested in lending your service, you know, whatever skill set that we could lean on and build on, you know, don't be afraid to come on and add value to Tranquility Credit Union. Is there anyone else with questions for our facilitator? We could take at least 2 more questions this afternoon before we come to a close.
I can ask a question. Mr. Matthew, what do you think we should look for when choosing a board of director?
Well, from how to put it, a structured standpoint, it should really be tied to your strategic direction. Because, you know, an organization, you know, should have a direction, a blueprint, a blue map to take it forward, right? But within that now, there are prerequisites, and prerequisites would be the type of skills needed, right? And you may want to sort of, in terms of the nominations committee too, I'm really happy that you have that, to try to seek out individuals. Now, as I said, that is the structured form, but at the end of the day, in terms of the democratic process, anybody can come and, you know, say, I want to be a director, you know, that kind of stuff. And once you get the vote, well, you know, they're on the board. So that that is one of the dilemmas in within our system, the credit union movement system. But having done that, and even once the person is on board, then I think collectively the board has a responsibility to develop those people because they're on board already, right? But really and truly, it should match your direction. Just as how you're running your thing, you're running your organization from the executive role, you need to know what type of accounting person. If you're into technology, you know, you need to get people with a particular skill set in the technological realm of things. So you're sort of matching your outcome with the resources, with the inputs. So you have the outcomes and the output would be, okay, the realization of the strategic plan. But what are the inputs to get you there for those things to be done, right? And the inputs would really be the type of director you need, or to mold, or to fashion, to really contribute towards that, what we call the corporate mandate of the organization. So the skills can be varied, but in terms of a balanced type of view, I think you really need someone who understands finance, because at the end of the day, it's a financial organization you're running. You also want to know, you have people who understand risks and operation, because we have a lot of operational management taking place. You know that you do making investments, you may want someone with an investment eye. Well, more so credit, in terms of how do you analyze loans. And of course, the market is changing so much. You know, yeah, we had the normal payslip and job letter, but that kind of phasing out in terms of all these people with small businesses, these unbanked people that need financing that the credit union should pounce upon. So you really need someone who can evaluate, to understand loans, underwriting, loans origination, loans evaluations. Again, once in the kitchen, you'll feel the heat. So people who have a skill in terms of delinquency management, collections would also help. Well, don't talk about technology. That is, you know, we are faced with that all around. So you want people with an appreciation of technology, especially the evolving ones, and how can we, leverage our operations from a technological standpoint. Of course, I mean to say, marketing is a must in my view, because you can have all the best system, but if you cannot reach your members in a particular way to really excite them, that kind of stuff, you may not, make much inroads. So you want that marketing type of person. You want the HR, because you're dealing with people you're dealing with staff, you're dealing with members. That interpersonal is a skill on its own, and so it's varied, right? And I think the collective wisdom of blending all these different interests without people taking an overly biased view that my way is the only way, you can have really good decision-making taking place, right? And even the governance role, chairman of the board, vice president of the board, these people. That's a skill in itself. Just, conducting a meeting, chairing a meeting is a skill by itself, So we need to develop people, and we need to identify those different roles. And I think the nominations committee can play a pivotal role in terms of having that balance, even from the recruitment stage, because we do it when we hire people to work for us. So why can't we attempt to do it when we're trying to sort of mobilize people, not really mobilize, but that might be the wrong word, but try to attract people to volunteer to serve on the board of directors at Tranquility Credit Union.
Thank you for that, Mr. Matthew. Anyone else? We have time for just one last question. No one else?
No one else?
Mr. Maxwell's hand is raised. Mr. Maxwell, go ahead. Mr. Maxwell? You can unmute
Yeah,
your
are
mic.
you hearing me?
Yes, hearing you loud and clear now. Go ahead.
I am very sorry that I missed the juice of this meeting, because there was so much things I was questioning about where not just my credit union, but credit union generally is going. And even though I heard Mr. Matthew speak a lot about futuristic things about the credit union, one of the problems I have with my credit union is that I'm not really seeing, we made a lot of changes, a lot of changes, which we are not really seeing the results of those changes we make in an effective way, especially in members' participation. And one of my experiences with the credit union, and not just this credit union, but this credit union I've been long, is that how we really present nominated candidates, these members, when they come on the day of election. And it seems as though there's always insufficient information about the candidate, because it tends to be like the election in Trinidad and Tobago, who is popular, should quicker get on the board. And these people really thinking about credit union and making credit union work. Because now that we have, let's say, operational management, not so much really members of the credit union managing the credit union, right? The management of the credit union was, in a sense, a management was very, very few. Today, nearly the whole credit union are managed by who comes in the credit union as an employee and then join the credit union. And the sad thing about it is the board really keeping that credit union power in controlling people who are supposed to be educated about financial management. Now, there's the craziness. Because if we wanted a bank, we'd have go to a bank.
Session, I would extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the members, especially the members who would have registered and who would have signed on today to be part of this important webinar on the roles and responsibilities of the board of directors. Mr. Matthew, who is a friend of Tranquility Credit Union, he would have covered, you know, a great deal of topics. He would have touched on in terms of our fiduciary responsibilities, in terms of for the board members. He would have talked about the exploring best practices in governance, the risk management, the strategic oversight, and one of the things he would have touched on is in terms of collaboration and in terms of the confidence that is required, you know, for in terms of the credit union, to govern the credit union. Members, we all know that the board of directors is critical in terms of steering the organization towards success. And one of the things that we wanted to do this year, which was a little different to last year, because we recognize that the participants I should say the participation in terms of members who would put up their names for the different committees was somewhat weighed in. And we found it necessary to try to encourage our members to come out. And we wanted to put forward these webinars so that persons could better understand some of the basic responsibilities of being a board, being a credit, and also being a supervisory committee members. So what we want to do is really take this opportunity today to thank Mr. Matthew. Mr. Matthew, I think he was very thorough. It was a very spirited, I would think, I don't want to call it a lecture, but a conversation that he had with us. And I want to thank him again from the board of directors, management staff, and also the members who are present today. I think the members who are absent are in fact, did in fact miss, because sometimes, yes, we're providing a recording, but there's nothing better to be live where you can have that interaction and that direct feedback. And I think they would have really missed out. We continue to plow ahead in trying to get members motivated to participate in their business. And I mean, Mr. Jarvis, Mr. Maxwell, we would always thank you guys because I mean, you all are always there. I mean, Mr. Jarvis, we call him Mr. Credit Union. And certainly we want to thank the others. I saw Mr. Brown, Joel on the line. I saw some new people who we haven't seen before, and certainly it means that the credit union is in good hands. So we want to ask members to stay connected as we put on future events, and we want to also ensure that Tranquility continue to strive in terms of excellence in governance. I would want to just indicate to people again, thank everyone for tuning in. And I hope that everyone have, well, I don't think any rain is falling again, but I hope nobody, wasn't in any way displaced by the, whatever rain would have fell yesterday. And certainly we look forward to having you all again tomorrow. And I want to say good night. I want you to say love your credit union and support your credit union. Thank you very much, Larissa.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cambridge. Thank you, Mr. Matthew. This brings us to the end of tonight's segment. We hope to see you all tuned back in tomorrow for the session on the supervisory committee. So I want to leave you all with well wishes for a wonderful night. Stay safe and see you back here tomorrow, same time. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night,
night.
folks.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, good night.
Thank you, Nigel.
All right,
Thank you
good night.
very much for having me.